Welcome to episode 24 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. Today we sit down with Rawdon Dubois. He's a world-class educator, coach. He deals primarily with people stepping on stage in bikini, bodybuilding contestants, getting them extremely lean, which is the extreme end of fat loss. And today what we're going to talk about is fat loss plateaus. What happens when your body adapts to the diet you're doing and you no longer start to lose fat, what to do about it, the methods he uses with his own clients, the mechanisms in play, and what you can do to apply these methods to your own fat loss regime to make sure you reach your goal in the best and most effective manner possible. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please rate and review on iTunes and all that good stuff. And yes, plenty of gems in here. Let's go. So today we have a very special guest, Rawdon Dubois, the Dubois method. And Rawdon, Franco, who's joined on with the gym, used to be his coach, ironically enough.
Yep.
You prepped him for Olympia?
That sounds really a lot more dramatic than what it actually was. But it was an IFBB amateur Olympia in Queensland on the Gold Coast. So that was when that happened here. Yeah, I did that, and
then I used to go to Rawdon's courses when I was
you used to come to Strongman, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, we used to clean health for all the courses when I didn't know anything about anything.
and now you just know how little you know.
Well,
the more you know, the less you know.
The evolution of where we're at, everything's changed, isn't it, since then?
Absolutely.
It's all a bit different, but for the better.
Yeah.
So, Rawdon, give our listeners a little bit of a rundown who you are.
I guess I'm a physique prep coach, probably first and foremost these days. I started I served my time at a commercial facility, so I worked at Fitness First Hornsby.
That's where we all start, Fitness First.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people diss Fitness First, but I think it was awesome for what I did. I'm sure yourself and Franco and the guys that have had decent businesses in Fitness First will say it is what it is, and you get in front of a lot of people, which is awesome. But I started Hornsby Fitness First. Did a show, actually. Did a couple of shows. And
yourself?
Yeah. So I had a couple of bodybuilding shows, and Steve Bordeaux, I don't know if it'd be worth getting on your podcast. Actually, a pretty cool guy. Been in the industry a long time. He's a physique coach as well. He just pestered me to become a PT, basically.
Really?
He was like, you should do it. You've done a show, you obviously know what you're doing. And
you started relatively late in circumstances.
Yeah, so I was in logistics. I worked for a courier company before that, sitting at a desk, which is great for physique prep. You get all your meals in, do your cardio before work, 9 to 5 type job. But and then started as a PT, talked me into it. So I did the fast track Cert 3-4, 6 weeks full time, I think it was, and then the AIF, and started in the club and prospected like a mofo, and to the detriment or the frustration of all the other coaches, where they'd go to prospect and I'd already pounced on the new member and given them a complimentary session. So hustled hard, open till close for I think the first 7 or 8 months, build the business, and then met Dane McDonald, Clean Health, and he coached me for my last show, which was actually my worst performance, so thank you, Dane.
Disc injury, so blew a disc out in that one.
I think that was afterwards, that one, yeah. But no, like we did prep a different way, and I learned a lot. And then he basically propositioned to work for Clean Health, so I transitioned over to Clean Health, and we were based at Salinas for a little bit, and there was a pretty cool crew there. Tommy Hewitt, Jess Murphy was there. We had Nick Floorshift Mullen there. So those of you that are in the industry might remember for those guys. Quite a few of them are still cracking around. And
but in fairness, the standard of PT industry was so low, I think, at the time, wasn't it? That it just took you guys to be professional, and you were like...
Yeah, I mean, Dane had a pretty solid... He's still one step ahead of the game. He's folded all at the gym now. It's all online. Fancy that when we can't even go into the gym. So go figure. But transitioned into the CHPC, so that got built in the city. And that was Dane's vision. And then we had a big crew in there. I think we maxed out at about 26 coaches there at one stage. And then I was in there, managed, was PTM for a little bit. I was basically whatever Dane wanted me to be. I was club manager there at the end, education manager there for a bit before Stefan Yaniv came on to the team. And then left there sort of end of 14-ish, and then started the Dubois method, where I just wanted to focus on physique prep, and judge for a few federations. So sat on the other side of the fence, looking, critiquing the guys up on stage. So honed that craft a little. Not judging at the moment, but still doing physique prep, and now that's all I do 24/7, and I educate myself weekly. I've got a few mentors. Boris Chavezman and Hanselmans are a couple that I still use, and I'm always sort of #always learning. That's one of my
he's being modest. He's one of the, you're always on it hard. You're always trying to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, man, I'm always trying to perfect something that can't be perfected. The human body's it'll always leave you guessing, but yeah, that's what I do now. And
so you're on the extreme end of the fat loss thing, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's funny, like a lot of Gen Pop, because I realise that's your bread and butter is just with average Joe, and I don't mean that in any disrespect to average Joe, but they just want to get in shape, But quite often, if I showed you a pic of the guys and girls that say 8 weeks out, it's like, like that. It's like, you're just a couple of months out from comp. So it's all the same stuff, man. Like, I think the big difference, Sean, is just the fact that they are a little more consistent with everything. They don't have that weekend off. They don't have the glasses of wine on the Saturday night, and they just dot I's and cross T's, and it's just averages over the time, but it's exactly the same stuff that you would do with your clientele. It's just, I police it a little harder, have a bit more infrastructure, so they can't go sideways or lateral at any opportunity. I've got a dead end there. They go, no, can't do that. And I know the ins and outs, I guess, and where they're going to turn, and potentially where they will be challenged with nutrition and training and energy and all that type of stuff. So just something, like I said, that's ever evolving. But I've got a reasonable grasp on it. But still, like, I get caught out and have to sort of consult others, and that's just the way it is, man. Like, it's there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just a few key fundamentals, and outside of that, it's everyone's a little bit different.
And I think, suppose, Gen Pop, which is the people I'll deal with, is they'll take some stuff from, say, typical bodybuilding prep diet, and then they'll take it the wrong way to their detriment. So there's obviously the main method of we're trying to achieve energy balance, but there's some like little facts that they may take on board on their own, or may have just been in the past.
And I think also looking at bodybuilders for inspiration or doing what they do is probably they're bodybuilders for a reason. How many people on the planet and how many are pro bodybuilders? Not that many. They can do whatever they want to a degree, and they would still look pretty freaking good. Genetics, it's a hugely genetic driven sport.
And same with the girls as well, like a lot of
100%, man. Like it's obviously they need to be consistent and apply themselves. They work very, very hard, as hard as everyone else. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the difference is when they work hard, they look like that. When you work hard, you're probably still pretty similar to what you normally look like, just a little leaner, and a little bit more muscle. And that's just, they picked really good parents, that's what it comes down to.
So ironically, what we're trying to say is some of your inspos that you look at on Instagram, they genetically just look unbelievable.
Yeah, and they legitimately, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they do, a lot of the time some are like that, where they don't have to really practice what they preach, and they do maintain a pretty crazy looking physique. But others, if you were to look at first glance, it's like, so-and-so can stay in shape. But if you have a look at the store, they actually do, you'd see they're super busy. There's, 15,000 steps a day. They don't eat off plan. They're always structured. And it's sort of, if you look a little deeper, it's all the stuff that I'm telling you to do. They're just really consistent with it.
There's that, and then there's like, they just have the habits ingrained for so long just to stay in shape.
It really is, and it's but absolutely genetic will dictate what you look like, and really, the transformation seen before and after pic. Often, you'll see that pic and you'll have it presented to us, and this is what I want to look like. I said, well, great. All that says is that individual, when they apply themselves for whatever period it was, that's how they're going to turn out. In no way, shape or form does that mean you're going to look like that, I can get you looking like that. That is my client, yes, that is what I did for them, but that doesn't mean I can do it for you. Now I'm going to give it a good go. I'm going to do everything I can to be the best you can at that point in time when we wrap up, when we're working together. So for me, I always have that end date. Yours is a little more open-ended, but often you'll have a wedding or a festival they want to go to, or they're about to go on traveling and they want to get in shape because they're going to be in the bikini. So it's the same, and it's really the best they can be at that point in time. And often you get to the end of a prep and someone will reflect, if I did that, or I listened to what you said. And I point out to them, it's like, well, no, because if you could have, you would have, and you didn't for whatever reason. So don't worry about it. This is the best you could be right now, not 12 months earlier, not 12 months from now. This is right now, 2020, August, whatever it is. This is the best you could be right now.
I love that transparency.
Yeah.
So what we're going to touch on today is just a bit of metabolic adaptation and I'm breaking fat loss flows, and what that means, plateaus, and what that means in layman's terms is what happens when you're doing everything and it's not the same as I was doing before. So someone may start, they may get a calorie target, they start to eat better, they start to hit their calories, start to lose weight. Everyone's different in regards to metabolic adaptation, and how much weight you lose will dictate that.
But absolutely.
What are some of the mechanisms that happen when your body go into a diet in regards to metabolic adaptation?
Yeah, like you said, there are things that will influence how many. I guess what we're talking about is, say, we start consuming a certain following a nutrition plan, and it is, say, a theoretical baseline calories. So you start somewhere, and that's how long is a piece of string type scenario. Anyway, I don't know what your baseline is really, unless I think if you go in a pod and sit there for 3 hours, they can work out how much carbon dioxide you breathe out and work out legitimately what your metabolic rate is. But using a particular formula, height, age, that type of stuff, you'll work out baseline numbers and set that up, and from there you'll manipulate things. You'll either increase output or decrease input. So you got those two options. And initially, what will happen is, hopefully, you'll have the body will perceive a negative energy balance and then liberate fats to make up the difference. And then over time, the body will adapt to that environment, and that's what it's 100% designed to do. So it's not supposed to be, forever in a deficit. That wouldn't be a very efficient body from an evolutionary standpoint. If you miss out on some food, then you die. So clearly it's not a very good machine if that's what happens. So, and really it varies how quick someone will adapt. Some have a highly adaptive metabolism, others have a poorly adaptive metabolism, which is influenced by lots of different things. But basically you'll adapt, and the body will function at whatever energy balance and either through output or input you've created. And then that's when we as coaches will then manipulate things and then make another adjustment, either increasing output or input, and then that will again create the similar environment. Fat loss will occur, hopefully, fingers crossed, and then you'll come to another plateau, and that is the process. And then you'll get to a point where things are starting to slow, and you might have what's called a diet break. You might pull out of that, reset some sort of homeostasis. Try and the thought process is that will influence metabolism, but really the metabolism is slowing for a variety of factors. You have less food going in, so metabolism, as I'm sure you've articulated to the guys, it constitutes of a few things. So you have your basal metabolic rate, you have thermic effect of food is in there, non-exercise activity thermogenesis is a big one, and then your plant physical activity, PPA, as well. So you add all those up, and that's your energy balance basically. And as you eat less, well, clearly that's taken a bit of your metabolic demands for the day. The energy that you need to get through your day, that's gone. And then typically you're a little bit lighter, so that's less mass moving from A to B, and that requires less energy. You usually, although we try not to, we design a program that's going to maintain muscle mass, but you might lose a little muscle mass as well. Then that obviously reduces the energy demands for the body as well. A little less muscle, so a little less metabolically active. And also the other things that happen under the hood are things like movement efficiency. So you just become more efficient. The body realizes it doesn't have as much energy coming in. So what once netted a certain calorie deficit by doing 20 minutes cardio, well, you've had adaptation, so you can now do 20 minutes cardio really efficiently, so it doesn't really burn that many calories. So it's sort of a slippery slope, and I know it's a doom and gloom, but that's exactly what if you think about it, the body should do. It should adapt to all these things. We have the cardiovascular system upregulates. It becomes more efficient. It's that, now if you're doing that to get, a healthy cardiovascular system, it's great, thumbs up, but we want it inefficient. No, I don't want to get cardiovascular. So it's a big demand on my body and I expend a lot of energy. So, all those things are sort of occurring and under the hood, we'll say, or working against you, I suppose. Seemingly against you, but it's not. It's just the body's just doing exactly what it's designed to do, and everyone has varying degrees of that. Yeah. And but one of the if we were to sort of understand that concept, and it's just a process of applying the environment, and then reassessing, doing skin folds, body weight, track things, clothes, how you look visually when you're training first thing in the morning. Try and create an environment that's pretty similar so you can actually compare apples with apples rather than apples with oranges if every day is different. So some consistency, but the plateau in fat loss is often the result of as you get deeper and deeper into a deficit, people tend to move less and less and less. So that NEAT, which is basically like you're here nodding at me, if you were really dieting, you wouldn't be nodding, you would just be probably going, yeah, I agree.
Because tell us when you were like prepping, like what?
Yeah, so
when you're training people, you sitting down, like you're just trying to get a rest.
For your listeners, I'm sure you have explained what non-exercise activity thermogenesis, but it's basically everything else outside of anything planned. So if we plan to go for a jog or do some cardio, that's planned. That's not NEAT. If we train, that's planned. But basically everything else, or you're moving around, going up and down the stairs, walking the dog, all these things, walking dog could be planned, but all these things constitute non-exercise activity. So as you fatigue, if you've known any friends they'll go into this sort of this zombie-like brain fog, and they'll just sort of walk around like a mute and not say anything. And it's not even a walk, it's a shuffle. So again, that movement efficiency, your body's learning and you're learning how to get from A to B and expend zero energy. So that is probably the biggest thing. And for me, it was a lot of sitting down, leaning up on machines, and I actually had 50 sessions a week when I did my last show, and I was training 3 times a day. But that's But yeah, you're absolutely right. That fatigue sets in, and you just reduce. You just move less and less and less. So one thing you can do is track steps, but that's not an exact science, obviously. And really, all you can do is try and keep the same routine. So, if you do get up at a certain time, get up at that same time. Don't, as you get tired, sleep in for 2 hours. You're changing the environment now. You're conserving energy. So the big thing is be aware that reduction in movement is probably the biggest catalyst for stalling fat loss. And then to really be consistent with your world, try and, wake time, bedtime the same, meal times the same. Try and have some consistency day to day, be organized. And then the other thing is just miscalculating the numbers. People say, I'm in a deficit, and then you add up all they're eating. It's like you're in, 2,500 calories, and you're a 50 kilo female. You don't need 2,500.
I always differentiate like beginner, intermediate, advanced. Beginner, most people aren't losing weight not from metabolic adaptation. No, you're just underestimating how much you're eating and overestimating how much you're burning.
100%. And it's not by choice. They're just miscalculating, and it's really easy to do. Things like I had this athlete I was coaching, and we sort of worked out that Mum made the salad for him. I was still living at home, but she drowned it in olive oil, and it was like an extra 600-700 calories a day just in olive oil. Tablespoon 180 calories. Go figure. I only put you in a 180 calorie deficit for the week. That's your deficit gone, and you're not losing fat. You're actually gaining fat as soon as you started eating more salads. So go figure. But there's usually a reason for it. It'd be a rarity that there is actually something metabolically wrong. And there's no. I will clear. There's nothing. There's absolutely no such thing as metabolic damage. Okay, that doesn't exist. There's certainly adaptation to the environment. But like I was saying, those diet breaks for physique athletes, like one of the very things that drives metabolism, you'd know, is a hormone called leptin. So leptin and ghrelin antagonize each other, and ghrelin, basically, when you're hungry, that goes up, and you'll get hunger pangs and try and eat. So you've got to fight all those things in it while you're dieting. It sucks, I know, but lots of vegetables that'll fill you up. Drink plenty of water. But leptin, on the other hand, lets you know when you're satiated and full and you have enough energy stored. And it's primarily secreted from fat, adipose tissue. So as your fat reduces, so does your leptin. So you have less and less of the actual hormone that's going to regulate a healthy metabolism. So when you have a diet break, unless the diet break puts a lot of fat on, you ain't going to get a lot of leptin. So as soon as you go back to your world, things are going to adapt again. So the reality is that you have to get things have to get pretty miserable for some to get the necessary fat loss that they're after. Now, once they're there, then it's a matter of bringing calories back up and dotting I's and crossing T's nutritionally and lifestyle wise. But yeah, some really do, and I see this time and time again. Some guys that really don't have to go into much of a deficit. I've got one guy I'm prepping at the moment, 10% deficit. That's it. It's on 2750 calories a day, plenty of carbs. Lots of calories, and every week he's dropping his skin folds. His body weight's going up and his skin folds are coming down. Go figure. And then I have someone else that has to be, she's a physique athlete, a bikini, trying to get a pro card in a particular federation, and for her, she's doing 90-minute cardio session in the morning, 60-minute cardio after training, a 2-hour training session on 900 calories. That's just where it had to go to. I didn't start there. Things adapted and fat loss stalled. I had to push harder and harder. So yeah, it's everyone's. We're all the same, but we're all a little bit different. You got to take everything at face value.
That's 100%. So the beginners, which a lot of people all get, they're just again forgetting to log a lot of stuff: oil, sauces, what else? What else is it? Drinks, whatever it is.
Exactly.
That's just a consistency on underestimating issue. But then you'll get to a point where people are tracking, meticulously weighing out the food. Then that's completely different because you're like, all right, I'm going to take this at face value. So someone does that. We're at the stage where they're weighing, they're tracking, they're being very meticulous. They do stop losing weight. What's your go-to then? How do you adjust?
Well, like I said, the reality is you have one of two options. Obviously, you dot I's, cross T's, look at, check front to back, up, down, make sure they are actually on point with that side of things. And if that is the case, then all you can do is either push a little harder, that you're going to create a more aggressive energy balance manipulation. So there seems to be a point of diminished returns in regards to output, and there's this proposed additive or constrained energy expenditure model that in the research. And you see it more in animals, not so much in human studies, but they think it exists. And basically, beyond a certain point, it doesn't matter if you do more and more output, you don't get any more of a, impact on energy balance. But the caveat there is, even though there seems to be a point of diminished returns where that's occurring, it is at the expense of that reduction in non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So you push more and more cardio, for example, but then you sleep in between cardio sessions. So you do your cardio, you do your 60 minutes and go home and nap. And then you get up, do another 45 minutes, then nap again. It's you can see why this isn't really a huge output, because you're napping all day. So, it is really, you got to track that non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So you really do have to.
If you're a beginner, you're just seeing where someone's steps are at currently, or
get a step count, track that. But even those simple cues like wake time and bedtime, just be consistent with it. If you're waking up at the same time, then you're awake for a certain number of hours a day. That's going to be relatively consistent from day to day. It is sort of, but I can sleep in. It's you're going to want to sleep in because you're actually dieting and the body wants you to sleep in. You've got to remember that the body prefers to sit on the couch and get fat. Fat is the body's energy reserve. It's happiest when it's fattest. Now, we could argue there's health concerns and everything else, but remember, from an evolutionary standpoint, that's what they're working against. We're encouraging them to do things that they don't want to do.
It's inconvenient.
It's inconvenient, and it's not what you think. In Paleolithic and prehistoric times, people would go do cardio. They would go eat as much as they can, get fat, and then sit in the cave. That's what we're designed to do. We're not exposed to exercise. We're not exposed to different. Now there's all these highly palatable, highly processed foods that make us, we get dopamine hits every time we chomp on a Snickers, and then we eat some salad, and I don't get my dopamine hit, give me that Snickers bar. So it's really, and there's advertisement everywhere. So and foods are designed to be easily digested, zero fiber. So it is a much more challenging environment. But reaching for a Snickers is actually, if you miscalculate things, is actually what you should do. You want to go for the most calorie dense food. That's what the body is designed to do. Again, Paleolithic times, there was a clump of broccoli or a thing of honey in the tree. I guarantee you're going to go for the honey.
That's why I made a video on intuitive eating. And like, if there's spinach there or a chocolate bar and you're in a deficit, which one are you going to pick? Chocolate bar every time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's millions of years of evolution. You can't.
But it's good to understand this, because I think a lot of people, when they've been in a diet or whatever, and then they slip up, they kind of blame themselves, whereas like, nah, it's what's fucking supposed to happen.
Exactly. You know, they can swear black and blue that they were doing everything 100%. Well, you have a week off, take the foot off the gas pedal, and then get back into it. All of a sudden, they're super diligent. Well, and things start moving again. So, but then it can go the other way. Some don't like to have a diet break because, again, they've got momentum, and they usually soften up a little bit with that diet break. But it's sort of, one step forward, two steps forward, one back with the diet breaks. And in the research, there was this Matador study, I think you probably recall, and that sort of showed that the diet breaks over a given period were superior. Like the group that did the diet breaks, lost a little more fat, I think retained a little more muscle, but it took twice as long. It depends how long you want to actually diet for. But long term, those diet breaks can be a good option. So that, basically reset, and start the whole process again. But really, ultimately, it's that energy balance that needs to be manipulated. So it could be psychological fatigue just from dieting, in which case a diet break's a good idea. And like we said, it's just that adaptation. So, doing things like trying to put on as much muscle and maintaining muscle. I think a lot when they start dieting, they do training, but it's all about the fat loss. It's the guys and girls that I coach, they're 100% trying to drive an increase in muscle mass to the peak week coming into the competition. So the way you set up a training program and the way they apply themselves will always influence things, and you want to try and come in with as much muscle as possible, because like I said, that's going to also influence metabolic rate. So
even with Gen Pop people, like obviously if I coach people online, the scales is the easiest metric. But then obviously if you get too caught up with that dropping and it drops too quick, you're losing muscle, which is down-regulating metabolism. So you can eat less food then.
Yeah, exactly. So I think definitely tracking scale weight, but you don't want to hinge success or failure on the scale weight exclusively, but definitely an invaluable tool, and something that every day the athletes I coach text me their body weight, so I'm telling them what to do on a daily basis.
And after you've increased the person's output to the point where they can't really do anymore, whether it's from life, whatever responsibility, then are you going, okay, let's take away some calories now? Because obviously people are, once they hit a diet, once they plateau, need to drop calories quick, drop my calories. They're always so eager.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes it just doesn't happen in a 7-day period. It might be a couple of weeks before you see a change. So I think for Gen Pop, every 2 weeks you should be gauging and looking at progress. I do things weekly, but again, the athletes I coach are a little more diligent, so we'll see something typically in a 7-day period. But I think 14 days, even up to a month, and in the initial stages of a fat loss journey, there's a lot of recomposition occurring, so muscle on, fat off, you might not actually see. And again, if you're familiar with Lyle McDonald, but he talks about this, as the fat leaves the cell, water replaces it, and so you might not actually see for the first 6 weeks any weight drop, and then all of a sudden this sort of dropping of water will occur, and then you might drop it, 3
you used to see
4
that?
kilos.
Because I see that definitely, especially with our women who obviously
I don't sort of work with that
anymore, but when you
anymore. Yeah, like 100%, it can legitimately happen. It's a hard sell. You tell them. Now, if you're doing skin folds, the skin folds should be able to see it, but even then, you could have subcutaneous water and it's throwing out the skin fold. So it's more, I think you need to trust the process, and again, dotting I's, cross T's with what you're doing nutritionally. And if you don't have a handle on that, then you can't conclude that you are in a deficit. And that would be the only thing that I would say you need to be aware of. Trust the process, but if you are in a negative energy balance somehow, either through input or output, then you can't do that work. You can't do what you do day to day without using fat because there's a deficit. So have faith in the numbers that you've set, and that's where it comes to the individual being super diligent with their lifestyle, so they can actually have faith that the numbers are right. Because we don't know what the numbers are, we're guessing, and then reassessing and adjusting things. But that's the thing that I sort of remind the athletes I'm coaching. I said, well, if you are on point with your nutrition and training, everything else, then trust me, fat loss is occurring. Then eventually we see the drop.
Stay
stay in the game, and it's and again, you'll have a friend that walks around the block for 20 minutes and they get shredded for summer, and but that's not you, So yeah, you got to take it at face value, and nutrition, drop it down, or
how much do you drop it up?
Usually I do 10% increments, so I'll 10%. Do 10% changes. You can start a little more aggressively. Mark McDonald, I think, from Mac Nutrition, he likes to go a bit harder, initially, and get as much change as possibly can. And for Gen Pop, you probably that's probably okay. And those that have a really high body fat, there's a lot of energy there. You'll be fine, So. But it doesn't matter where you go. You start somewhere and adjust things accordingly. But every couple of weeks, you should be seeing some sort of change, I think, in scale weight. But certainly, I do have an exception to my rule because COVID happened, and I took on a couple of guys. One's a guy that I have coached previously, and then his friend, and they're pure Gen Pop. That's great. No program. It's like, all right, let's do pull. Did we do pull downs Monday? Yeah. Okay, let's do seated row. What grip did we do? Straight bar. We'll do neutral. How many reps? Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Super easy sessions, but 3 times a week. But understand that I'm normally not in session, like I'm just on the laptop. So I deliver them a personal training service, but no tracking weight. But his clothes are fitting, and he's wearing tight. I haven't worn this shirt in since I was in Dubai 3 years ago. I'm feeling absolutely amazing. I saw my friends from uni, and they said how lean I was looking. It's so good. It's the best change I've ever had, and I'm not even tracking a thing. He doesn't even know his scale weight. That's purely for how he feels and how the clothing is fitting. So use all those things as measures, and if you have been dieting for a while, catch up with some friends that you haven't seen for a while. I guarantee they'll be like, "Oh my God, what's happened to you?" Even if you don't see it. Just remember our own worst critic as well. Like, so I haven't lost anything. I've got no change, and everyone else is saying, "Oh God, you look so amazing," So
especially a lot of women that obviously you're more temperamental weight wise around the time of the month.
Yeah, it's tough for women, man.
Because I think even Rawdon McDonald talks about sometimes you may need 4 weeks when you adjust something
potentially for females.
It depends where they are in their cycle.
Yeah.
Again, on scale weight, unless you have Rawdon there to pinch.
Yeah. But even then, they can hold more fluid at certain times of the month. So it is definitely more challenging for females in that regard, like gauging progression. But it's the same as men. If the deficit is there, then it will be occurring. You just can't see it just yet, but it will come.
That's why it's funny. Even some of the girls I train online, they go, "The scale's not dropping," and then you be like, "Is your clothes feeling looser?" Yeah, it's all feeling looser, but the scale's
well, that's really good still. Yeah.
So even when it comes to again, the big popular thing is people with steps and Fitbit, and obviously brilliant metric to see where you're at, especially for people starting off. But I think what people forget as part of metabolic adaptation is, like what Rawdon said, you are going to burn less calories doing that. Your body gets efficient at that. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so what you can do is, with the athletes that I coach, I remind them. So that is one thing I check. So I do a review of all of the stats that they send me on a daily basis. Plus I do check-in. So once a week I'll review all the facts and figures, and I review their step activity each day. I review their training programs, look at the training performance. I make sure progressive overloads occurring. We can talk about that if you like. And then I look at their check-in pics, and they also fill out a document where they'll be tracking blood pressure, heart rate, and sleep, and all that type of stuff. So I review all those things. But when I do the step review, I do point out that it's not just about hitting that number by the end of the day. It's about using the step count to set up your day, so your day equates to the step count, but it's a routine that you've established. Now, it might be you walk down a couple of blocks and sit down at Darling Harbour, have your lunch, then you walk back to the office. You get up, you walk the dog around the block, whatever it is, but that's your routine. Stick to it. And that means that is not reducing any AT. So that movement efficiency, yes, that's occurring, but usually it is primarily a reduction of what you do day to day. So if you can set something up, set it in stone, have a routine, be structured, and then run through that, and then when you get to the end of the day, you should look at the watch, and there I go, I hit my 11,000, between 10 and 12,000, done, there we go. Now, it wasn't because you were doing whatever you wanted to do throughout the day. I'm not saying don't have a life, of course. Have a life, use that when your world is a little bit different, and occasionally we've got to do things that aren't normal, then just use your step count to hit a same number by the end of the day, but use the step count to force you into keeping a consistent routine day to day. Well, if you sleep until 8, it's really hard to get the steps, so you better wake up at 7. Well, cool, that's what you should be doing. You want to keep nice and consistent with your world. So I think it's a matter of not just relying on the steps, because you could sleep all day, then get up and go for an hour and a half walk and hit your steps. That's not the same as
so you're inherently going to burn less calories doing that.
You're asleep half the day. That's not the same. So it's not an exact equation. It's not an exact reflection on non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So use the Fitbit to structure a routine. So you tell the athlete or the individual, set up a routine, schedule, whatever you want to do throughout the day. But make sure it falls between 10 and 12,000, then just stick to that day in, day out. So note that when you wake up, same meal times. Consistency is what the individual needs to do. Consistency with food, consistency with routine, consistency with training, consistency with mindset, lifestyle. All these things need to be consistent. That's the only difference between a physique athlete shredded on stage and someone who's not. They're just diligent with everything. But so step activity, that's one way you can do it. So really encourage the same routine day to day, and then that will equal the step count. But you're right, there is an efficiency that will happen, and that is in part, you're lighter doing those steps, so you just don't burn as much energy, and you're more efficient. Cardiovascular system, your energy systems have upregulated. So what you can do is periodically increase the steps to a point, and then up until potentially that deload period, and then you'll sort of reset everything and start again at 10,000. So every couple of weeks you can put it up 2,000 steps. So initially you start at 10,000 or even for the first month, 4 weeks, and then the second month, okay, now we go up another 2,000. We're at 12,000. Next month, okay, now we're at 14,000 minimum. And that, in theory, is accommodating the adaptation and the efficiency that you're improving to move day to day. Same with cardio, like cardio, what once was a 20-minute session that netted, a couple of hundred calories being burned. Well, in a week or two, that ain't a couple hundred calories. You're efficient walking on a treadmill,
Despite what the machine tells you.
Despite what the machine tells you. That doesn't take into consideration adaptation, not at all. So, you can, from 20 minutes, you go to 30 minutes and offset that adaptation, then you go to 40 minutes. But understand, by doing that, by manipulating the steps, by manipulating energy balance, all you're doing is creating in theory, the exact same environment that you actually started with. Remember when we went baseline, we went 10%, and I gave you 10,000 steps? Well, now, because of adaptation, it is 40% deficit, 16,000 steps, and an hour cardio, whereas once it was 20 minutes cardio, 10,000 steps, and a 10% deficit due to adaptation. So it's just like training. If you don't change the environment, you won't keep building muscle. You build muscle to a point, and then you become more efficient, and then that stimulus is no longer a stimulus because your body is more efficient at moving that way. So the same with everyone seems to understand that quite well. It's like, I've got to lift heavier over time. Yeah, absolutely, progressive overload. You want to grow muscle, that's what a muscle is going to respond to. But then, they fail to apply it or think about it laterally from that perspective with everything else we're doing. And cardio is one of those things that arguably there is going to be adaptation. So, a titration of duration, that's probably the easiest, rather than trying to make it harder and harder and harder. Just increasing that duration to offset the adaptation is one way you can do it. But steps can be done that way as well, for sure.
And for the cardio, like if people say, when I walk on the treadmill, like you said, you don't want to make it too hard, because then you probably end up just stressing your body out more.
Yeah, potentially more stress, and it might impact the training as well, for sure.
Yeah. Would you change the mode of cardio?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your body's getting efficient, isn't it?
Yeah, you could go, treadmill for X amount of time the first month, and go to cross trainer. Stepper, that would be if you're really annoyed at the client. It's like, no worries, we've got an hour on the stepper, go. But definitely different modalities will be a challenge and be harder, absolutely. And it's a bit like, when you program high reps for certain exercises. Some, do you want to give someone an hour on the stepper? And that's just murderous. An hour on the treadmill, that's attainable, and they can do that. But absolutely, modality can change, definitely. And of course, you got your interval sessions as well, so intervals can certainly be utilized. I tend to, in physique prep, lean towards LSD, so the long slow distance, just treadmill typically, occasionally Stairmaster or cross trainer, but usually just a treadmill.
And we came from the world of, obviously, when intervals were popular.
Yeah,
and I remember fucking killing my clients.
Yeah, bro.
But you don't use that anymore. Like, tell me kind of your rationale. I don't use it either, but like just for when you fat loss in general.
Yeah, like I think there's definitely if there were time restraints, I think it's still a good go-to. I think the chances of injury are up a little bit. You know, certainly if you went to the park and did some sprints, and the last time you sprinted was when you were at school, and now you're 40, there's a good chance there's going to be bits and pieces of hamstrings, you know, left on the ground, and you know. So I think the impact on the body is a little more profound. I think it can also impact. Resistance training, like I want them to psychologically be applying themselves the most in the training session, and that's where they get out of the phrase that I love, and I tell the guys all the time as part of that review every week: get comfortable being uncomfortable. When we're uncomfortable, that's when we adapt. And that is really a simple statement. So, you know, when you're in the bottom of the pendulum squat and, life's really sucking, just think, get comfortable. Okay, I'm uncomfortable. I've got to be comfortable with this. This is when I'm going to adapt. And that's the reality, So I think the intervals may impact the effort psychologically that they need to go to with resistance training. So I tend to separate the two, and I keep it low intensity and just do it on the treadmill typically. Yeah. And then, like I mentioned earlier, away from the training session, because there's some concurrent training between resistance and endurance tends to interfere with the anabolic signaling. So you might not get as robust a stimulus for growth after the training session if you throw your cardio, but if that's the only time you have access to the equipment, and fat loss is a priority, then obviously do it then. But in a perfect world, you would try and separate them for 4 to 6 hours apart.
Yeah, brilliant. So if time isn't an issue, and obviously I think people forget that you prep people for a certain date and time. So
absolutely.
Like sustainability goes out the window because you have to get them looking at a kind of certain way.
Yeah, and they're usually very committed.
If you were coaching someone longer term fat loss where they may have started obese and you bring them down, how long would you have a certain amount of time you put that person into a deficit and then maybe come back to maintenance, or how would you strategize a long-term strategy for someone?
I think it's individual specific. Like some can just diet for a lot longer, so you really got to look at how they're applying themselves and how motivated they are, and probably that would be more of a catalyst rather than a stall in fat loss occurring. If they're just about to throw in the towel, then you probably want to give them some. So
mentally as well, you're looking at
definitely psychologically when they're putting their hand up and they're about to tap out. I think that could be a reasonable time to reconsider what you're doing there and give them a bit of a diet break, or you methodically have it in where it's just structured. You diet. Like my training programs are 6 weeks long, they're 5 and the volume titrates up. It's max volume on week 5 and that's deload volume. And deload volume also coincides with when I bring calories up if they've been dieting. So they'll go, deficit, then deload, training volume down, cardio out, steps come down, and I give them more calories to let them.
So what would a diet break look like?
The main thing is just increasing energy and changing the environment. So energy balance needs to be more doesn't have to be right back to baseline, but up from where they were. For my guys, like I'll have rest day calories and training day calories, and training day would be typically 20 to 30% over rest day. So for a diet break, depending on where I took the calories to and where they were, it'd probably go back to that rest day caloric intake. So if training day was 3,000, rest day might be 2,500. If they were on, say, 2,000, I might go back up to 2,500 like rest day calories, and then I would go from there, start again, 10% drops, and work my way back down from there. But that's every 6 weeks that I would do a diet break, but it's all the same foods. Like I don't change foods. I don't have the issue I have with let's call it shitty food choices, but food choices driven by cravings, I suppose. Like I want to try and, when I work with the athletes, create an environment that's going to be better or more conducive for a quality physique when they step on stage. I don't for 1 second suggest that you can't do it with flexible dieting. There's lots in the industry that have an amazing business and structure with flexible dieting, and that's awesome. But what I'm trying to do is just, get the guys and girls to realize, poor quality food is poor quality food. You want good quality food because you're fueling the machine. We're doing a lot of training, a lot of performance that we want to see. So let's put good calories in. So I never program cheat meals. If they have off-plan meals, they respect energy balance, so they don't go crazy with calories, and they need to have a skill set to be able to do that. So I never tell them not to eat off-plan if they're in a prep. I'll say, well, I don't recommend it right now because you're 2 weeks out, but it's your choice if you do. Whole food choices, stay away from highly processed, highly palatable foods, because when you have those foods, and I've been there, I've done that, I've dieted with coaches that gave me weekly cheat meals, and I was just living from cheat meal to cheat meal, and that was an eating disorder. So really now, forced by COVID and not being able to afford meals I've planned, but no, it's not quite that dire. But now, I haven't really had any plans off for quite some length of time, and I don't crave them like I used to. So it's the taste, palate, reward hypothesis is this concept where if you eat it, you want it. If you don't eat it, you don't want it. And understand that even though the individual might have some desires to eat, I feel like a pizza and ice cream or chocolate on the weekend, it's like, cool, well, that's just a feeling like you might want something that's vastly different to an addiction like craving where you will do anything for that high that you get from a block of chocolate. So it's better that it's not that it can't be part, and some can deal with that fine, and they don't have those ravishing cravings where they'll kill someone to get some of those calories, But others, it's best just to avoid it. It really is, because as much as you do have those urges, they're just urges. They're not these cravings where you will go buy the chocolate and sit in your room and just eat it and not tell anyone, because you want to you're getting high. It's addiction-like behavior, and it is. It's been shown to spike dopamine, and that's why you do it, because there's these internal urges. So on my nutrition plans with the athletes I coach, and again, I'm not saying you can't do it different ways, it's just the way I do it, is to try and get them to think that the food they're consuming is just fueling the machine. Their body's the machine. They're going to present it on stage in X amount of time. And if they do eat off plan, respect energy balance, but just stick with whole foods. Whole foods, unprocessed, unrefined. Stay away from anything sort of really highly palatable. If you have something that tastes really, really good and overly flavoursome, and they're designed to be like that, so you go back and have more and more. At a party when you have some chips, don't tell me you're going to have one of those chips. You're going to go back and finish that bowl off before the meat comes out.
Especially if you've been dieting as well. There's no
exactly.
They're upregulated even more. You get more dopamine hit.
100%. And it can also interfere with leptin signaling and all sorts of stuff. Like you don't get you can have mixed signaling where you don't get that, because remember, leptin is supposed to tell you when you're satiated and you have plenty of energy. Well, that gets obscured with some of those food choices, those highly processed foods, because the body's not used to having them. It doesn't know how to deal with them, and you never get the feeling of being satiated. There's no fiber in those foods, so you don't get that the effect from fiber where you stop eating that food and you just keep eating more. 10 bags of chips and you consume 20,000 calories. The amount of calories you do in a month, and guess what? That energy has to go somewhere. It's going to get stored, and remember, the body's super efficient at storing body fat. It's hard to get rid of body fat, but really, really easy to store it. So that's why the diet break will just be sort of whole foods, just bring the calories up, so more carbohydrates typically. I tend to program sort of fats on the rest day, and then training days that have more protein, carbs, but just increase calories, and then after that go back into a deficit and start the whole process again.
So if someone may have been trying to do it themselves the stupid way, and they've just dieted themselves without any diet breaks, and they're at a point where they can't really decrease calories anymore because they might want to binge out, or they can't really increase output, does that person need to come back? Or do you want to extend the diet break or maintenance break? What is your theory on that?
There's a couple of ways you can do it. Like, this is the whole thing with, do you reverse diet out of a competition when your calories are low? That's a little bit different, because you have understand that what you do with your clientele typically is healthy for them to reduce body fat, get into a lean efficient body fat percentage. But what I do, that's to a point, and in that last 8 weeks, that's when shit goes sideways and it's just unhealthy hormonally, and I'm the first to, if someone asks that, I'll say it's not healthy, don't do it.
Small sports and healthy.
It's extreme. It's extreme. So for them, there's more of a need to sort of go back to, I think, a decent caloric intake, because they need to gain fat. They need to gain fat to be healthy, So I think when they continue to reverse diet for a really extended period, or really take the time bringing calories up, you're just doing yourself a disservice. Like, sorry, you've been shredded, cool, now you're going to gain fat and go back to what is sustainable. So cut out the cardio, bring calories back up. So really it's back to baseline in that environment. So those numbers that you would have started at. Now, will they gain some body fat? Yeah, they will, but that is exactly what's needed. And for your Gen Pop that's doing that, yeah, they might actually gain a little body fat, but then you can start the whole process again. So it's not, again, if you respect the energy balance. Now, if you do what some athletes and eat those highly processed, those foods, you can eat tons and tons and tons of calories. If you, after a comp, tell someone you can eat whatever you want, as much as you want, but it's got to be whole foods, there's only so many potatoes they can eat and so many steaks they can shovel down. They're just not going to, even if they want to abuse calories, they can't. But then they start going for ice creams and the pizzas and the chocolate and everything else. Well, they're super calorie dense.
I think we were with Jimmy Piper and Baraluca a day after his comp. I think he consumed 5,000 calories.
Yeah,
that one meal, easy. You're still hungry after.
Yeah. Exactly, you're still hungry, and how does that work? That's because the signaling is all out of whack. But each their own. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But a lot of inflammation from those foods, like it's just, you feel garbage. It's all right at that moment while it's sliding down. 100%. But so bring calories back up. Understand you might soften up a little bit, but it's a means to an end, and then you can readjust, recalibrate, and get in the mindset to continue. So 1 to 2 week diet break, and they might actually, I said, leptin is the master regulator of metabolism. Unless you gain fat, well, gaining a little bit of fat is going to bump up metabolism, so that's cool. That's okay. You can strip it off. You'll be in a better place metabolically. You might actually put a little muscle on, a bit more calories. Remember, when we're in energy deficit, it's hard to build muscle. Now we can design programs with a sufficient amount of protein nutritionally and do things with progressive overload, try and maintain as much muscle. But truth be told, it's easier with high calories, so you can gain a little bit of muscle in that 2 weeks. And then you may actually in a 2 week period start to have a little bit of an influence on metabolism. Basically, when you eat food, your NEAT goes up, so spontaneous physical activity goes up. So as soon as you start eating a bit more, guess what? Your NEAT goes up, so you can tolerate more carbs and calories. So, I think understand that it's sort of a pause on fat loss. Enjoy the moment, have a little bit more of a social life for that period, and then not that you shouldn't have a social life. Obviously, it's about balance, and then make some sacrifices and get back to dotting I's, crossing T's, and setting that structure up again, and peeling the calories away and going through the whole process that you did previously to get down to that point, and then another diet break and start the process. But it might be like 12 months, 24 months to sort of get to that end goal. It just takes time, just like building muscle takes time,
And again, you're looking at how, for Gen Pop, how consistent they can be on a certain plan. Obviously, if a lot of them take up a bodybuilding diet, they're just going to go straight, increase the chance of failure and not get anywhere. So
potentially, there's always exceptions to the rule, Sean, as you know. But I just understand, I think, the concept of energy balance, and it doesn't really, if you want to do, we could probably argue keto is not the best, but for some it's great, fasting not the best for muscle mass, but it has its place, exactly. But if any of those diets, doesn't matter what diet it is, and this, if a diet works to change body composition by reducing body fat, all it did was put you in a negative energy balance. So understand that as well. It doesn't really matter what your poison is, as long as there's a deficit, you will have success over time. Now we can argue certain caloric nutrition plans and certain quality calories and whole foods, etc. We could put a fair case for those to be better quality, but there's Google the Twinkie diet. There's a guy the professor that at university, just ate Twinkies. I think he took a multi and some amino acids and whey and stuff, but dropped a ton of weight just eating Twinkies, and go figure. Now that's not very nutritious, but the funny thing is, Sean, that yes, the process I think would be probably easier if they have stick to sort of what we would call better quality food choices, but the reality is that the sooner you get the body fat off for someone that is legitimate, because having an obese body fat is unhealthy. It's bad for your health. Having that, carrying that body weight is hard on the joints and tendons and heart and everything. So the sooner you get lean, the better. So if you want to do it with some flexible dieting, then go for it. But it's all about being consistent and energy balance. Get to where you need to get to. But I think long term, there'd be a pretty fair case to argue that the merits in whole food choices.
I think even when people talk about flexible diet and eat whatever you want, but again, even for me, if one Tim Tam, the whole
whole
3 boxes are gone.
Exactly.
So everyone has different trigger foods.
Exactly. It has a lot more moving parts, which for some work well. So I like to keep things really simple, you know. But
if someone gets to the stage where like, okay, I'm happy at this body weight or body fat, then what are you doing with them to maintain that, or can they maintain that? How do they regulate it?
So I think the first thing I would say was that a lot of athletes do that. They're like, they get shredded and they go, I'm going to maintain this. It's like, okay, you're going to continue doing 90 minutes cardio and 1,200 calories and training 7 days a week. Cool, go for it. Not very healthy for you. Yeah. Oh, okay, but I was thinking, well, as soon as you change that environment, it's going to change the physique. So I think it's about having realistic expectations. Now, can so-and-so on Instagram maintain abs and be shredded all year round? Remember what I said at the start, genetics are king. If they can do that, great. You might not be able to do that. So I think the first thing is have realistic goals and expectations. I think that, you know, anyone should be able to peak, for the beach in summer. So do some sort of more aggressive dotting I's, crossing T's, for the last 6 weeks to come into summer. And then you might get the abdominal definition you like, so you can enjoy summer. But during summer, you're going to have to maintain that environment to maintain that physique. But once you've had your fun and enjoyed your time in the sun, then, realize that that's not maintainable, because you just can't keep that world there, So I think have realistic expectations, and if they achieve what they want to achieve, then what to do then. It's basically be prepared to adjust and pull things out. But the reality is you might have to do 12,000 steps a day, and you might have to train 5 days a week, and you've got to do that half-hour cardio on the treadmill in the morning to maintain your physique. And like I said to you, even though we sort of have these guys and girls we idolize on Instagram, and there's ones that I look at, I think they look amazing, but have a look what they do. Like, yes, they're genetically driven, but they're flat out. They get up, they go walk, from one end of Bondi to the other. That looks a bit like my prep. I got up and I did cardio, and then you see them, all the foods they eat are clean, whole foods, and so often, yes, it looks like they're genetically gifted, and yes, they have great genetics, so they look good when we've, some of us just have weird shaped abs. We don't have a six-pack shaped ab, like, what the hell? Thanks, mum and dad. But often they actually are doing quite a bit to maintain that physique. So, it's no free ride. And you just got to be active and stay healthy and train and eat clean. But it will definitely be, you have to comprehend that a certain lifestyle, nutritionally and activity wise, and also sleeping patterns, these types of things, they're all influential. So it's a matter of thinking about the big picture and what you can actually do day to day. And like I said from the start, have realistic expectations of what you can maintain. But you certainly can maintain a reasonably lean physique. But make no mistake, the reason why a lot come out of comp and they blow out, and you see them like within throw Jimmy under the bus. But I think when I saw him comp time, and then a month after, I was like, "Whoa, you've been eating." And Jimmy's like this for your listeners. This guy's probably got a physique that you and I would like to have. He's got a sick rig, but that's what will happen. You go from doing cardio and eating, what you were eating, and then going to no cardio, probably don't train for the first week, and eat, highly palatable, highly processed, higher calorie dense foods, when you're going to get fat. If anyone does that, they will get fat. Now, if they go back to doing some training, maybe keeping a little bit of cardio in, and then respect the energy balance, then guess what? They don't get fat and blow out.
So you bring that person, if it's a Gen Pop person, are you bringing the calories back to maintenance, or is it they have to stay on whatever calories they got down to?
It's again, how long's a piece of string? So it's sort of like whatever they're comfortable doing, but you would need to increase calories. It might be the other thing I like to do, aside from going back to baseline calories for an athlete immediately post comp. I mean, if they want to, I will do a reverse diet, but it's over a 4-week period. So basically, if they're at minus 40%, we go minus 30, minus 20, minus 10 baseline over the 4 weeks and bring them up. But you just don't want to delay it, and the whole point of a diet break is to get more calories in. You're going to have a diet break for 6 weeks where you bring calories back up. You can do that if you want, but the whole point is to give them calories reset, then start the process of fat loss again. So I think you just need to bring them up and you choose, but it would depend on how deep into the energy balance and the deficit they actually were. But it would be, if you want me to put numbers, I would say 20-30% of calories from where they were. See how they what happens to the body comp, and then that will give you another 30% or so, plus taking out cardio, dropping steps down. So there's lots of moving parts that you would use to actually increase on paper how much energy they're taking in, because you've reduced movement. So you think of those few vectors that you can manipulate to alter that energy balance, but you just need to increase it, how much you increase it by, and also the psychology. Do they want to go back to baseline? That would be better for a metabolic perspective, but they might gain a little more body fat, so you might not get away with going back to baseline. They're just going to be unhappy at that because they soften up too much. So
it's a cyclical thing. If it's a long term of someone staying in and around where they want to be, they're kind of at maintenance. Then when they want to get a bit leaner, into a deficit for a few years, back out.
Absolutely, they can maintain something at around maintenance body weight. Absolutely, it's the people in the US. If you see some of the stats and figures for obesity now, they don't actually do anything. They don't change their diet, but Thanksgiving and Christmas they abuse. So those 2 times of the year they consume 12,000 calories in that period, and that's easy to do with all the fats and everything else in a single sitting. Well, you do that over 10 years and you've gained 10 kilos. They only gain like half a kilo to a kilo a year, and they're like, I haven't changed my diet. Plus, a little bit older, less muscle mass, sarcopenia setting in, less movement. So it doesn't actually take much to slowly gain body fat. You just got to be responsible and understand energy balance. Nothing comes for free.
I made a mistake of that before. When I first started, I think there's a little quote on Instagram where it's like, don't worry about the times in between Christmas and New Year. Worry about the times between New Year's and Christmas. And then when I read that thing, Stefan Guillen talked about it.
That's a lot of referencing.
I was going, I've been wrong, and don't fucking blow out around that time.
Just a comprehension of, there's no free calories. Like you consume it, it's going to be stored as body fat, or you're going to use it. So, doing things again, it's the psychology that comes with it. You don't necessarily want to have an eating disorder where you indulge, then you have to punish yourself and don't do cardio. But it's about just being aware of it, accepting it. If you make a choice to eat it, then that's fine. You've made a choice. Be responsible, own it. But be aware that you need to potentially train a little more, to offset it, or eat a little less coming into the sitting. I mean, there's lots of things to biohack to. But really, you just got to understand that the calories are calorie. If you consume it, then it's going to have some impact. With some calories less problematic than others.
It's so good. And obviously, when people are trying to diet and drop the calories lower, a mistake gym pop people make is eat less quantity of food. So Rawdon was saying eat more veggies. How do you structure that with your clients in regards, say, more volume as food for lower calorie? What type of foods are you having in there?
So like every meal that so I don't have any shakes or anything like that. Intra-shake for some of the guys when they're in what I would call a hypertrophy specific phase before we go into a fat loss phase in the final sort of 20 weeks coming into a show. They might do a 6-week fat loss cut during the off season as well. But outside of that intra, that's Sabito, Sean Cooper, have some EAAs and some carbs while they're training, because we've got an abundance of calories. But generally speaking, the meals will have a big serve of. I generally, again, remember I've got the individuals for a short time frame, and I'm going to try and get the body working a little more efficiently. So I avoid gluten or dairy. I don't think there's inherently they're not the devil, but they can cause irritation. Certainly if they're eating a lot of food. Having those things in there may just irritate things a little. I want the digestive system being efficient. So no gluten, no dairy, and the vegetables are all low FODMAP. So FODMAPs are a type of sugar that in certain vegetables and carbohydrates and foods. So it is vegetables, but following that criteria with every meal. So it's up to 500 grams. So if they have leafy greens, they might not have 500, but if they have more, broccoli and, these types of heavier green beans, they might get up to that 500 grams. But I still police it. I don't tell them unlimited, because been there, done that. And, next minute, you've got a salad bowl that you put on the table, a mountain of Well, yes, you can eat a lot of vegetables, but there's still calories involved in vegetables for sure. So it's still, because they're in physique prep, but generally speaking for your guys and girls, go for it. Vegetables,
people that
green veggies
aren't getting fat off eating the big salads.
No.
Well, that's
exactly.
The extreme end of it.
Extreme end, I do still police it, but generally speaking, just with every meal, get a good intake. Just be aware that fibre, typically, not for everyone, but is your friend, and that's going to keep you satiated and improve GI transit time and these types of things. So just a generous, you can't really go wrong, just go for it. But prioritize green vegetables with a bit of colour is what I would say, if you had to push me. But they're the types of things that I would recommend, just to keep them fuller for longer. Drink plenty of water. And the other thing is just be consistent. Like when you you eat 4 meals a day or 3 or 5, whatever you want to eat, that's fine. You either eat 3 bigger meals, 4 not quite so big, or 5 smaller. It doesn't matter. Calories still need to add up at the end of the day. Neither is better than if you want to have 3, that's fine. 2 meals a day, you're probably pushing it. I think 3 is probably where you want to, if you only want to eat less frequently. But the it is, if you're consistent with the meal times, then the body just functions better. You don't have those less cravings, because your body actually, your body clock, your circadian rhythm, if you set it up with, like I said, that sleep-wake cycle on point, you wake up and go to bed at the same times, eat at the same times, well, your body's pretty smart. It'll know that that's when you have a meal. So things like digestion improves, insulin sensitivity goes up, nutrient partitioning is better, so you tolerate those carbohydrates better at that time, because you normally have a meal at that time. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be within 1 minute, within a 20-minute, half-hour period, but again, they're little things that don't seem like much, but they're little things that can make the whole process easier. Again, you look at those guys and girls that you look up to, I reckon they're pretty diligent with their meal times, and they, it's time to eat, and they get their Tupperware container out.
You don't have physiology and psychology point of view.
Exactly.
It's just exactly what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Both those things are going to come into play. But again, just those subtle things, and typically, yourself, if you say you're rushed out of home in the morning, and then you're in sessions, and then you don't have it, you're guaranteed you're going to go for a bacon and egg roll at the cafe. You need calories in ASAP. Stat. You've only got a couple of minutes break. So it's about being organised and allocating time to eat as well. That's the other big thing that I would say for your listeners is, a lot have digestive stress. If you ask everyone, like, it's such a I think everyone would confess that they do have, I get some bloating. Well, that's normal. Guess what? A bit of bloating is normal. Excessive bloating, probably not so much. But the biggest thing you can do outside of food choices, and we could labour that point and pros and cons of different food choices, but beyond that, is just take the time to eat. Take the time to actually consume the meal and not inhale it like we tend to do every day. And PTs are the worst for this.
Instagram,
in between sessions,
on Instagram, getting your food in,
just checking it, putting the likes, putting a post up, doing many things at once, but just chewing your food, and giving yourself, allocate time in your diary. Alarm goes off, okay, it's time to eat, sit down, and even go into the sun. A simple thing, going into the sun every day, great for the immune system, but guess what, that really helps how will you sleep at night. So just go into the sun, and that's what a lot of people don't do. They go in the office in the morning, leave at night, and guess what, you don't get any sun and they sleep shit. Go for 15-20 minutes in the sunshine. What does it do? It lets the body know it's daylight, so that circadian rhythm can get set up. You produce melatonin when you go to bed. So again, these little things, but yeah, like with digestion and that timing, that can make a big difference as well. Allocate time for yourself to eat a meal. And if you have the luxury at the moment because you're at home, prep the meal. That is part of what should happen when you eat. It's done, we don't get it out of a container. You touch the meat, you smell the meat as it's cooking, or the vegetables or whatever you're having. And that actually upregulates digestive enzymes in the mouth, and you get ready for the meal, rather than, just ripping the top off a sandwich wrapper and chomping it down. But either way, give yourself time to eat and chew your food properly.
Yeah, because even we had on Lacey 2 or 3 episodes ago, and again, not even looking at what we're looking at, simply looking at every bit of your lifestyle that will impact your hunger, your cravings, getting sun, fresh air. And again, like you said, most of the people that you probably look up to have the time, but do this automatically anyway, so everything just regulates much better.
Exactly, and from first glance, it's like they're so gifted, but it's like, they're actually doing all the things that I'm telling you to do or suggesting you do. So there's often it's a rarity that they have shitty lifestyle. They don't sleep. They can eat whatever they want, or if they do, it's only a matter of time, and then you'll see them.
I thought that's just because they take OxyShred. No, that's
OxyShred, something like that.
And the last thing what I want to touch at is, just like we said before, and genetically it will differ when your metabolism adapts or how many calories you're on. Because I think even I'll coach people online, and even Louise always says this. So Mrs. Jones can diet on 2,500 calories, and I have to be on 1,200. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it? You just have to accept what your own metabolism is doing. And
but like I said, all those things are going to influence it. So you have a look at the 2,500, and she's a nurse, and she's got a feed all day, and she's just working like a mofo. She sleeps regularly. You sleep weird times. You do shift work. You just can't tolerate as many calories. She might have more muscle mass. She might have a better hormonal profile because she's younger. There's tons of things that can influence that. But is it as simple as there is a bit of, well, that's your lot? If you are dotting I's, crossing T's, and doing all those things, and it's 1,200 calories to get where you need to go, that's just the way it is. And guess what? From an evolutionary standpoint, you're going to be the one that's surviving. Old mate 2,500 who, well, guess what? If they don't eat, then they're going to die. You're very efficient, so you can, tell him that he can, hold his chest high and say, I'm evolutionary superior to you because I can function on 1,200 calories. Screw you. Now, does that make it any easier for fat loss and change your body form? Absolutely not. But like I said, it's typically, remember, calories come down. All those things are going to happen that we discussed. But look at that non-exercise activity and really being a structured routine. You'll find that has a lot to answer for. Plus, just those things like they might actually be a lighter individual just doing less. So it's sort of genetics do definitely play a role. But if you look under the hood, there's a few moving parts that you can look at, and they can also explain why you only need 1,200. And even things like we're talking about that reduction in need, and I said keep a solid routine and a structured lifestyle, but that's still all voluntary choices. Like there's a lot of subconscious going on, like facial expressions. Like I said earlier, you're nodding. Like if you were dieting hard, you wouldn't be nodding. That's going to conserve energy, and you might not actually think about it, or you might normally you're tapping the feet at the office at work, and you sort of bopping your head. You might be listening to music. Well, when you're tired, you don't want to listen to music. You don't bop your head. Well, you think about bopping your head all day long. That's probably going to burn 100 to 200 calories more than not bopping your head all day long. Well, that's only put you in a 200 calorie deficit. So there's 200 calories off that 2,500. Now she's on 2,200, 2,300, and then we subtract other things, this and this, and lo and behold, there's your 1,200. Now, others may not get affected as much by that. Maybe they can't not be animated with work and or whatever their existence is day to day. So I think that yes, we can sign off on, well, it's genetics will influence it. But then if you look real deeply, there's probably things that you can sort of say, well, this isn't happening, that's not happening. You're not sleeping well, you only sleep 6 hours, they sleep 8 hours. And the checklist, and it's like, that's when they can get away with 2.5 hours.
It's a lot you can control as well. We actually got a standing desk at home.
Yeah, with that. I actually looked at that because I'm at home as well, as you know, and I think it was it about 200 to 300 calorie difference a day? You sit down for 6 hours or stand for 6, that's 200 to 300 calories. That's you want to put it in flexible diet, that's a donut. You can have an extra donut and not put on fat. But all jokes aside, things like that can really help, especially in this environment where we are at home so much.
She was looking at there's a standing version of a treadmill desk.
Oh, wow. I don't know about that. You probably...
you wouldn't get any fucking work done, you just stand up to fall over.
Exactly, and that's sort of, you want to break from what you normally do get on the treadmill. You can check out from reality a little bit. But those types of things can be great as well.
And like you said, the people that may burn a different amount of calories or may have survived better in evolutionary times again.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know what's going to happen with all this COVID. All the past is gone, so you may be in good stead.
Yeah, only the strong survive, huh? Wow.
Amazing.
Watch this space.
So what's the plans for you? You're just dealing with competitors now? Or?
Yep. So
tell us where to find the Dubois method.
Yeah, so you can hit me up if you want to hit me up. That is on Instagram, so the Dubois method, or on Facebook, or Rawdon Dubois. You can pester me. No, you're not pestering me. But you can hit me up on just Facebook itself as well. Under the Bar podcast, of course, with Tommy.
Yeah, unbelievable podcast. Yeah,
thanks, man.
Brilliant.
So you can check us out on Under the Bar. And for me, the comps, quite a few are cancelled for this year, but there are comps season A next year, so working with guys and girls for that. They've got a couple going up this year. They are New South Wales shows, so hopefully they go ahead. But that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And if you want to get super shredded, hit them up for sure. 100%.
If you want to get shredded, that's I'll
give
it a go. Now you might see on my Instagram that I have done it with some athletes. That does not mean I can do it for you.
Transparency's key.
I can try for you 100%.
Unbelievable. So, thank you very much, Rawdon.
Thanks, Sean. Absolute pleasure, man. It's a big fan of your work, and it was great to come on.
Legend.